Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Laguna Beach. My name is Donna McCartney and I'm delighted to be your worship associate today. This is our live virtual broadcast. Welcome. Yesterday was May the 1st, May Day. We're going to delve into the history of this day over the millennia. Our opening video showed some spring celebrations and one aspect of May Day. These next slides show you my experience with May Day when I was growing up, and maybe it was yours too. We wore flowers in our hair and spring clothes. We made May baskets and shared them with others. And children would often dance around the maypole in school and church events. I even had my kindergarten students do this when I was teaching them more than a decade ago. I didn't realize back then that many people around the world on May Day are celebrating labor rights, not spring festivals. Unitarian Universalists are more interested in this aspect of May 1st, International Workers' Rights Day. Today we'll be focusing on the history of May Day, emphasizing International Workers' Rights Day. It's time to light our chalice. In each heart lives the flame of truth, bringing warmth and light and hope and inspiration to the human journey. Lighting our chalice on Sunday mornings is a reminder of that inner flame and of the need to nourish it and share it with one another. We're delighted to have Patrick State light our chalice this morning. Patrick has been attending our fellowship since 2019. He stepped up and volunteered to be one of our techies for our virtual services and is now also on the worship committee as well. He has a very cute 4-year-old daughter named Zena, which we may see pop in the background at some point. Thank you, Patrick, for your service to our fellowship and for lighting our chalice. Light yours at home too, if you choose. For the wonder and inspiration we seek from sun, stars, and all of the heavens, we light this chalice. May the light of understanding illuminate our darkness. May the warmth of caring bring us healing and peace. We are the warmth. We are the light. Our centering thought today is from W.E.B. Du Bois. Please read it together with me if you choose. Here it comes on our screen now. Now is the accepted time, not tomorrow, not some more convenient season. It is today that our best work can be done, and not some future day or future year. It is today that we fit ourselves for the greater usefulness of tomorrow. Today is the seed time. Now are the hours of work, and tomorrow comes the harvest and the playtime. We're delighted to have our music director, Carole, singing and playing the piano for us this morning. We're going to be muted while Carole sings and plays a song that's kind of unfamiliar to us, but goes along with our labor theme this morning. It's number 109, As We Come Marching, Marching. If you want to sing along from home, the lyrics are in the chat box. Thank you, Pam, for putting those in there for us. Carole?
Good morning, everybody. So as Donna said, we're doing As We Come Marching. It may be a little unfamiliar at first, but do your best, sing along, and I'll do my best to lead you. I have to keep my eyes on the words, though, today on this song. Workshops gray, trenched with all the
Thank you so much, Carole. Beautiful as always. We love having you sing for us and play for us on Sundays. So there's a short affirmation that I invite you to read aloud at home with me. Please unmute yourself so we can hear each other as we read together. It may sound like a cacophony, but it reminds us of the times we were together in the fellowship. Now that the pandemic has lessened and things are opening up, I know we are all hoping to be together again at the fellowship one of these days in the future. This morning's affirmation is now on the screen. Read it with me. Love is the spirit of this congregation
and service is its law.
This is our great covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another.
So coming up on your screen is a picture of all the benefits that were fought for by workers during the 1800s. So Donna, if you can put that next slide up there so everyone can see. So so happy May Day, everybody. Here's what the workers brought to us for all their struggles over the years. The 18-hour workday, the end of child labor. And that's still not true around the world, but it's definitely true in America. Weekends off of work, how about that? Workers' comp, health and safety standards, collective bargaining. So thanks to our ancestors who fought very hard to make these strides in justice for workers possible. So let me tell you a little bit about us. We are the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Laguna Beach. We accept you for who and what you are. We're a welcoming congregation with membership open to all. We subscribe to no single religious creed, but have gathered a set of principles that guide us as we build a religious community together. Our amazing minister is Reverend Lee Marie Sanchez. Because we are a small church, we can only afford to pay her as a part-time minister. However, those of us who know her well know that she's full-time in every sense of the word. From working way more than her allotted hours to keeping us fully in her heart and pastoral care. So we are blessed to have such a devoted minister. Thank you, Lee Marie. It is time now, if you're so moved, to share some joys or sorrows. Ours is a sharing community where our joys are amplified and a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. This is not a time for announcements, but rather a moment to express something in your heart. If you have something to share, please raise your hand and we'll call on you when it's your turn. I'll go first. All right, so the mission of our fellowship and our congregation goes on even though we're not together. The costs that go with that mission continue even though we cannot pass our offertory basket around like we used to when we were inside the fellowship. You're now seeing the screen that shows you how you can contribute to help keep our mission for world peace and social justice. Please give generously and with love. The links to both the Tithely site and PayPal are in the email that was sent to you to let you know about this service. So it's easy to click on the link and help us with our mission. When we were together in the fellowship, we always took time once a month to celebrate those who have birthdays. Since we didn't celebrate birthdays last month, we're going to celebrate both April and May birthdays today. So if you were born in April or May, please raise your hand so that we can celebrate you today. So we have any April. Okay, so it looks like Noreen, Carole, excellent. Who else? Keep your hands up. So anybody else? Oh, Jonathan. Okay, am I missing somebody? I feel like romper room here. I see so-and-so. Okay, so it looks like 3 of us. Yes? Okay, so these are our birthday children of today. So Carole, do we have a song for them?
Sure. All together now. Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear yours. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday. So now it's time for our meditation. Afterwards, Carole is going to play and sing for us a familiar song to us, Spirit Says Do, number 1024. Some of the lyrics have been changed to suit our theme today, And Carole will help us to know which words come next. Plus the words are also going to be in the chat box, thanks to Pam. And right now, though, it's time for our meditation. So let's draw inside ourselves as we meditate together. If you'd like to join us, you can close your eyes, relax in your chair. And Dawn, can you put the meditation, there we go, thank you. So close your eyes, relax in your chair, put your feet flat on the floor, shoulders back, hands and arms relaxed. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Take another deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth, letting it all come all the way out. Now follow the movement of your breath. Let's share a quiet moment of meditation.
Well, we're definitely going to change the mood a bit, sing one of our favorite songs. And as Donna said, I'm going to give you the cue words, and I will do that as we progress through the song. But just so you know, the words are, the Spirit says do. So the Spirit's going to say do, then he's going to say work, and then he's going to say sweat, fight, and then back to do again. So here we go with our new version. Start with do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do. Oh Lord, you gotta do when the Spirit says do. Spirit says
Thank you so much, Carole. That was so inspiring and got our juices going. Thanks. So the title of our service this morning is The History of May Day. What's it mean for Unitarian Universalists? So May Day is a May 1st celebration with a long and varied history dating back millennia. Throughout the years, there have been many different events and festivities worldwide, most with the express purpose of welcoming the change of season, spring for us in the Northern Hemisphere. So we're going to show a video now about the ancient and pagan history of May Day. The narrator is a bit odd, but he has some interesting historical information. Then we're going to move on for the balance of our time together to talk about our UU interest in the real May Day, which is International Workers' Rights Day. Here's the video.
Does May Day have pagan? Where did the tradition of maypoles and May baskets originally come from? And did shouting May Day as the international signal of distress have origins within this holiday? These and many other questions in regards to the origins of May 1st will be answered. Welcome to the Arcanum Luminarium. The 1st of May is an ancient Northern Hemispherical festival, now known as May Day, which traditionally marked the return of spring. These festivals were celebrated with rituals to help ensure the fertility of crops within Egyptian, Greek, and Roman culture. Later festivals included the Celtic festival of Beltane and the Germanic festival of Walpurgis Night. Many customs from these ancient festivals have found their way into modern celebration, including the gathering of wildflowers, setting up decorated maypoles, and dancing. Maypoles in particular were danced around while holding brightly colored ribbons that became decoratively intertwined. The Romans celebrated this occasion over 2,000 years ago with the Festival of Flora, which was a 5-day celebration honoring the Roman goddess of flowers, vegetation, and fertility, known as Flora. Flora was one of 15 deities to have their own state-supported high priest called the Flamen Florealis. The Festival of Flora was celebrated with dancing, gathering flowers, and the wearing of brightly colored clothing. This festival was opened with theatrical performances and concluded with competitive events, spectacles at the circus, and a sacrifice to Flora. It was also documented in 30 AD that the Emperor Galba featured a tightrope walking elephant. The Festival of Flora became officially declared a holiday by Julius Caesar, and it was said people would wear garland of fresh flowers while scattering seeds to promote the agricultural growth. Let's look at another country's tradition, around May 1st. During this time, the Celtics celebrated the Festival of Beltane, which means the return of the sun. It was celebrated within Ireland and Scotland. The Celts believed the sun was held prisoner during the winter months, only to be released each spring to rule the summer sky. They celebrated this release with fire ceremonies and a huge feast. Rituals were performed in order to protect cattle, crops, and encourage growth. Bonfires were lit, and their flames, smoke, and ash were said to have protective powers. People would walk around the bonfire and sometimes leap over the flames. As Europe increasingly became Christianized,
Okay, so that was the history of May Day, but we UUs are interested in May Day, for a very different May Day. In the 19th century, May Day took on a new meaning as an International Workers' Day grew out of the 19th century labor movement for workers' rights and an 8-hour workday in the United States and around the world. Unitarian Universalists focus on the labor aspect of the celebration. There are two UU principles that I think relate to this labor theme. The first is my favorite. Number one, Unitarian Universalist congregations affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of each person. The second is number 6. The Unitarian Universalist congregations affirm and promote the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Justice for workers is worth fighting for. We UUs have a long history of defending workers' rights. When UUs think of May Day, we think of labor, not spring, toil, not flowers, elbow grease, not maypoles. Employers show they honor the worth and dignity of every worker by providing a fair wage, safe working conditions, and reasonable working hours. The majority of the information I'm going to share with you today is coming from history.com. The map coming up on your screen is going to show where International Workers' Day is celebrated in the world. And you'll be able to see that it's celebrated in most of the world except for North America. This is because we moved our May Day to become Labor Day, but we'll find out more about that later. During the 19th century, at the height of the Industrial Revolution, thousands of men, women, and children were dying every year from poor working conditions and long hours. In an attempt to end these inhumane conditions, the Federation of Organized Trades and Labor Unions, which would later become the American Federation of Labor, or the AFL, held a convention in Chicago in 1884. The FOTLU proclaimed 8 hours shall constitute a legal day's labor from this point on, May the 1st, 1886. The following year, the Knights of Labor, then America's largest labor organization, backed the proclamation as both groups encouraged workers to strike and demonstrate. On May the 1st, 1886, more than 300,000 workers, 40,000 of them in Chicago alone, and from 13,000 businesses walked out of their jobs across the country. In the following days, more workers joined and the number of strikers grew. Overall, the protests were peaceful, but that all ended on May the 3rd, when Chicago police and workers clashed at the McCormick Reaper Works. The next day, a rally was planned at Haymarket Square to protest the killing and wounding of several workers by policemen. The speaker, August Spies, was winding down when a group of officers arrived to disperse the crowd. As the police advanced, an individual who was never identified threw a bomb into their ranks. Chaos ensued, and at least 7 police officers and 8 civilians died as a result of violence that day. The Haymarket riot set off a national wave of repression. In August of 1886, 8 men labeled as anarchists were convicted in a sensational and controversial trial, despite there being no solid evidence linking the defendants to the bombing. Some thought the jury was biased with ties to big business. Several of the convicted men received a death sentence, and the 8th was sentenced to 15 years in prison. In the end, 4 of the men were hanged, 1 committed suicide, and the remaining 3 were pardoned 6 years later. A few years after the Haymarket affair and subsequent trials shocked the world, a newly formed coalition of socialist and labor parties in Europe called for a demonstration to honor the Haymarket martyrs. We have 3 videos to show you about this labor aspect of May Day. The first 2 are historical videos, and the third just happened yesterday. Yes, International Workers' Day was yesterday, and Rachel Daniels, thank you to her, she sent me a video of a new report of what happened in several European countries as part of their annual International Workers' Day activities, which was yesterday. So we're going to show that one at the end of the 3. Here in Los Angeles, we also had a smaller May Day protest downtown yesterday, with the marchers focusing on racial justice as well as economic justice and workers' rights. And now we'll show you the 3 videos.
History of May Day. May 1st is a metonym for International Workers' Day. a day of celebration of the working class. Behind it lies a history dating back over 1.5 centuries. The roots of May 1st can be traced to the second part of the 19th century, when there were revolutions and organizations behind which industrial workers rallied. Countries including Germany, France, England, the US saw demand for reducing work time from 12-15 hours a day to 8 hours. The Communist Manifesto, written by Karl Marx and Engels in 1848, had a great impact on workers across various countries that were feeling the heat of industrialization. Crop failure in the 1840s led to widespread anti-feudal upheavals called the Revolutions of 1848. As a result, the International Workingmen's Association, known as the First International, was born in 1864 as an umbrella association for all socialist and communist organizations, at a workers' congregation in London. After the First International dissolved in 1876 over an ideological rift, the Second International emerged in 1889 as a united outfit of socialist and labor parties. It was the organization that declared May 1st as International Workers' Day and March 8th as International Women's Day. Historically, an event is referred to as the origin of May 1st as Workers' Day, the Haymarket Affair or the Haymarket Massacre. When laborers assembled at the Haymarket Square in Chicago on May 4, 1886 and took out a rally for 8-hour workday, a bombing attack was mounted on them by some unknown forces. Police firing and loss of 11 lives were reported at the rally that ended in riot. Scholar of labor studies William J. Edelman says about the Haymarket Affair, no single event has influenced the history of labor in Illinois, the United States, and even the world, more than the Chicago Haymarket Affair. It began with a rally on May 4, 1886, but the consequences are still being felt today. Although the rally is included in American history textbooks, very few present the event accurately or point out its significance. As for May Day in India, the country witnessed the first celebration of Labour Day in 1923 in what was then Madras. It was at these meetings that a resolution was passed urging the British government to declare May 1st as Labour Day and also a government holiday. It was the first occasion in India on which the red flag was used. May Day has ancient roots in several countries. The better known is the festival of Flora in the Old Rome, which was billed as May celebration. Flora was the goddess of flowers, and the festival was marked by song, dance and theatrical performance. Another May Day celebration was in praise of Dionysus and Aphrodite, the Greek gods of grape harvest and love respectively. There is also May Day, which is a distress call made by ships and aircraft. May Day is an anglicized version of the French Maydays, meaning help me. Thank you.
So now Dawn is going to show us the video that Rachel sent us that it has events that happened yesterday in Europe, and you'll hear a modern version of May Day.
We have one more before we get there, Donna.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. You put the spotlight back on me, so I thought, okay, go ahead.
For millions of workers around the world, the 1st of May is their day. In the late 19th century, American labor unions were fed up. Fed up with being overworked, in dangerous conditions, and with little pay. So in 1884, the Federation of Organized Trades and Labor Unions met in Chicago and had one major demand: an 8-hour workday. And on May 1st, 1886, over 300,000 American workers went on strike. 3 days later, thousands of strikers met in Haymarket Square, where a riot broke out between cops and workers. A bomb was thrown into the crowd, killing several people. It was called the Haymarket Massacre. And today, May 1st is known as International Workers' Day. While every country's workers have a different history behind May Day, they all commemorate those who have and continue to give their lives for workers' justice.
tear gas to disperse crowds during riots. Police scuffled with protesters and fired tear gas to disperse crowds during a traditional May Day march in Paris on Saturday. Debris fires burned, flares were fired and bank windows smashed in the French capital, where trade unionists were joined by members of the Yellow Vest movement and workers from sectors hit hard by pandemic restrictions. Thousands joined some 300 marches across France despite lockdown restrictions, demanding social and economic justice and voicing their opposition to government plans to change unemployment benefits. Arrests were made in the capital, where at least 5,000 police have been deployed, Parisian authorities told Reuters. A few hooded, black-clad demonstrators clashed with police or threw stones and garbage bins. Police said they had prevented Black Bloc anarchists from forming a group. President Emmanuel Macron won the presidency in 2017, promising a new way of doing politics. But much of his reform agenda had been bogged down in fights with unions, while the pandemic has halted his plans to reform the pension system. May Day protests could also be seen elsewhere in the world, including England's capital, London, where hundreds gathered to demonstrate against a proposed law that would give police extra powers to curb protests. And marches were organised in some German cities by neo-Nazis and the so-called Querdenker or lateral thinker anti-lockdown movement.
Okay, so thank you to Rachel for sending that video to us to see what happened yesterday, current events of May Day, and mostly in Europe. But we also had some protests here in Los Angeles as well. So thank you, Rachel, for that. So May Day is an official holiday in 66 countries and unofficially celebrated in many more. But ironically, it is rarely recognized in the country where it began, United States of America. After the 1894 railroad Pullman strike, President Grover Cleveland officially moved the US celebration of Labor Day to the first Monday in September, intentionally severing ties with the International Workers' Celebration for fear that it would build rapport for communism and other radical causes. So we have President Cleveland to thank or unthank for moving us away from the rest of the world and celebrating yesterday, May 1st, as May Day. So another important labor event of the 1800s is of special importance to me because it took place in my hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The Homestead Steel Strike was an industrial lockout and strike which began on July the 1st, 1892. It culminated in a battle between strikers and private security guards, the Pinkertons, on July 6th, 1892. The battle was a pivotal event in US labor history. The dispute was between the Amalgamated Association of Iron and Steel Workers and the Carnegie Steel Company. The final result was a major defeat for the Union of Strikers and a setback for their efforts to unionize steelworkers. However, in the late 19th century and well into the 20th century, laborers continued to join unions to demand fair treatment for workers. It wasn't until the 1970s that union membership in the United States began to diminish, and along with it, middle-class lifestyles and income inequality. The United States may have moved the celebration of workers' rights from May Day to Labor Day, but UUs have always fought for justice for the working class. We now have American policy leaders who are trying to put policies into place that will reverse the trend against labor. We now have hope that the needs of working women and men will once again receive the attention they deserve. We now have hope that the arc of justice will bend toward fairness for all. So we're now going to have time to discuss the ideas that were shared this morning. Dawn's going to randomly put us into breakout groups of around 4 people, and we'll have about 10 minutes to discuss our ideas with each other. Please make sure everyone in your group who wants to is able to talk and share their thoughts. After our group discussions, we'll come back together as a congregation. Please select somebody in your group who's willing to report out a highlight of your discussion to the whole congregation. Right now, it's time to be sorted into those breakout groups. So your task today is to share your thoughts on May Day and workers' rights. Have fun.
How long are we going to stay in the groups, Donna?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Donna. Something from others' ideas. So if one person from each group would raise their hand, Donna, I'll be looking for your hands and share out what your group talked about. So we're looking for hands right now.
I'll go first for our group, Donna.
Okay, please.
Our group was Jean and Mark, because they weren't able to get into their group, so I stayed with them in the main room. And we shared a lot. Jean shared about her life experience in unions as a teacher and Jack's experiences. And then Mark shared that he actually started a union a long time ago. He couldn't remember exactly when, the Office Employees Union. And he was instrumental with two other gentlemen in starting that. I asked him why did he feel it was necessary. He said they had put a halt to raises and he had done a great job and he deserved a raise. So he was inspired to go to action and to create the union. And aside, he said also that it caused a breakup of his marriage because he chose to go to the union meetings instead of focusing on the things that his wife at the time wanted to do at the time. That was all very, very interesting, all very strong commitments and life lessons from their journeys and their relationships with labor and the labor union movement.
All right, thank you, Don. All right, so Don and I are looking for hands. Anyone else want to share out their thoughts on Labor Day, International Workers' Day? Anything that was mentioned in their group? Oh, Robert, go ahead, Robert.
So I was in a group with Donna and Lee Marie and Sherry and myself. And Lee Marie opened talking about her experience with May Day at a previous congregation where she worked with the Maypole. And then we talked a little bit more about the role of unions in higher education, and Sherry and myself, our experience in working in our labor union, representing teachers and professors, and how that's really had a significant impact in raising the living standards of teachers, but still there's still a ways to go because there's so many part-time faculty who and teachers who don't have adequate protection. And then we talked a little bit about the problems of gig workers and the gig economy, and how there's a need for more work along those lines. And then we talked a little bit about how we're heartened by the direction that the federal government's going under President Biden and his return to recognition of workers as critical in the role of our country and improving the conditions of work around the world. So we had a lively discussion.
Thank you so much, Robert, for sharing that with us. Anybody else want to share out? Peggy, I see you. Can we spotlight Peggy?
Yeah, I was with Rachel and Tina and Carole, who was sideways, but we all lived with it. And I think it would be accurate to say we were all over the place. This is a huge topic. And we also factored in, we also kind of included some discussion about the more pagan origins of May 1st celebrations. I remembered celebrating, I remember maypoles in my public school and during my childhood in Los Angeles. And Rachel, jump in any time to help me with this. I think we had some agreement that, well, we talked a little bit about how our celebration in this country got moved to Labor Day in September, and it did not stay in May, which all seemed to have to do. Carole reminded us, I think it was Grover Cleveland, wasn't it, Carole, who made the decision to move it and to separate it away from the international celebrations, because that was tied to communism and socialism, and we were so totally freaked out by those things in this country. And I'm sorry that we aren't part of a more international celebration on that date. But I also felt that I'd like it to be a broader and more inclusive movement. It has, I think, focused more on working class labor and unions, and that there are millions and millions and millions of us who are hard workers who are not, don't really fall into that category, from preschool teachers and moms to artists and professionals and, you know, everybody else under the sun. I wouldn't mind seeing that be a more inclusive endeavor. Rachel or Tina or Carole, if you want to add anything, jump in now.
Yeah, I think you did a beautiful job, Peggy. The only thing I would add is that it was so cute that Carole said that when she was growing up, they used to leave little baskets of May Day flowers, you know, celebration, and right, Carole, and put them on the porches of people. And I think Tina also had the same experience with those little baskets and a big celebration. And you with the maypoles. So, yeah, both sides.
And we
did a
talk
beautiful
about,
job. Yeah.
We talked about how the solstice celebrations seem to have taken over more of that focus that's tied to, you know, to earlier origins of the celebration of the seasons.
All right, well, thank you all for sharing that out. Looks like Mark is holding up his flower creation for everyone to see. Well, he did a minute ago. Anyway, Noreen, would you like to go next?
We were a little bit ranging in thought because of our different ages and experiences, I think. But for me as a teacher, the union help for us was great. You know, they really stuck up for us with capricious principles or whatever. And for women in that type of work, it was a safety blanket in so many ways. It was I really appreciated our union. Patrick has had another experience. He says that he probably wouldn't join a union, but he's in a career path that I think, from what you said, doesn't really benefit from a union approach. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick. And then Virginia was in our group also, and Virginia wishes she had a union, but working in a small shop of optical services, that the management knows how to say the right thing apparently, but there's no strength behind the workers to force them to do what they say. That sounded like what you were saying. She would like to have a union to protect, you know, what is her right according to her management. So we've had different experiences and different thoughts on it. Patrick, I probably didn't represent you fully.
Well, if you want,
something to say.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I recognize the usefulness of unions in some places. I mean, it wouldn't be. I don't think it would be. It would work well for me. And I mean, software development, you know, generally goes very quickly and needs to be very agile. And you know, I think that that a lot of times I've been able to get what I need from management on an individual bargaining basis a lot better than I think I could get on a collective bargaining basis. Just because every day I'm not doing the same thing. You know, and then I was mentioning that, yeah, that I've had some bad taste in my mouth from unions, you know, janitors union protesting my college graduation. It was an important day in my life. And I felt that they didn't make the need to protest very clear, you know, and so I was a little raw about that, but I can see that there's a lot of great places that unions come in and they're absolutely necessary some of the time.
Okay, thank you, Patrick, for sharing, and thank you all of you. Is there anyone that we missed that would like to share before we close things out for the day? Anybody else? Oh, looks like Tom. Go ahead, Tom. Oh, I'm sorry. Cindy, go ahead, Cindy.
Oh.
Hi, I was with Jonathan and Candy and of course Jim.
And we touched a little bit on the history of it, but we were mostly discussing the AB5 and the initiative, both of which together have pretty much screwed things up for entirely too many people. I worked for the IRS for over 20 years, so I know the difference between an independent contractor and an employee. And the biggest one is, do you set your own hours, which just about everybody in the gig economy does. They are not employees, and putting them under the employee banner has taken away some of their rights and protections. Unions are important. Everywhere I've worked that had one, I joined because they did a lot for us. But not everything should be considered an employee, and not everything is appropriate for unions. And it's just not right to shove everybody under the same umbrella.
So some different points of view. Thank you for sharing that. So we're going to go to Tom.
So my group was Pam and Dara, and nobody else joined us. So we just sort of caught up. We did talk about Labor Day in the sense that Jean Ron, that was one of her biggest days of the year. She was so pumped on that day, and we miss her a lot. But other than that, we were catching up and talking about our summer plans to fly here and there now that we're all fully vaccinated. So I'm sorry, but we hijacked our session a little bit.
You had your own plans for the discussion. Sounds fun. Okay, anyway, so I think it's now time for us to extinguish our chalices, and we're going to go to Patrick to extinguish our chalice, and you at home can extinguish yours as well if you choose. Go ahead, Patrick.
To extinguish a chalice, in the words of Ani DeFranco, any tool is a weapon if you hold it right.
Thank you very much, Patrick, for being our chalice person this morning. Really appreciate that. So we extinguish our flames, knowing that the light remains in the warmth and compassion of our hearts until we are together again. So today we're leaving our fellowship community knowing that when we join hands in seeking justice, we are an unstoppable force. Go in peace. Namaste. Like we always do, we're going to end our service singing "Let There Be Peace on Earth" with Carole at the piano. Remember that we have a virtual cafe afterwards. I hope you can stay and chat with us there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Carole?
Thank you.
We don't sing it together.
That's the second time I unmuted myself. Let's try this again. Ready? Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With earth as our mother, be our family. Let us walk with each other, perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment. With every step I take, let this be my solid guide. Take each moment in peace, eternally. Let there be peace on earth. Let it begin. Have a joyful day. Thank you.
Thank you.